We get into why the author is anonymous. Let's, just for the benefit of our viewers, bring them into the picture. Give us a brief synopsis of One Man.
Well, One Man is essentially it's a novel which deals with the reality of South Africa today. So, you know, all of the characters, there are six main characters, and all of those characters deal with an aspect of South Africa today. So, you know, they're very diverse. One is a child, one is you know, kind of an older man who runs a factory, one is a lawyer, and all of them relate to, back to the reality of what we all deal with in South Africa today. So on one level it's a very simple book, and on another level it's a very complex political investigation of South Africa.
Why is the author anonymous?
Well, the problem that we had when we sat down to begin to decide how we were going to market and how we were going to sell this book was the author's profile. You know, and he felt that the thing that he didn't want to do was to get into a space whereby his profile would essentially overshadow, you know, what the book was trying to do. And the book is trying to, you know, unpick the reality of South Africa today. And he didn't want, you know, people to start focusing on his career and what it meant for him to actually, you know, come forward and say these things, because he felt that, you know, if people found out that it was, you know, they would begin to question where it came from rather than actually engaging with the message of the book itself. He felt that his profile would get in the way. And so essentially we decided in the end the main thing was to make the book anonymous, so that, you know, as an author he could step back and he wouldn't have to then answer these questions.
Okay, so we've established it's a man, we've established that it's got a high profile, we've established that he's obviously in the public eye. Can you maybe shed a little bit more information? Is that from a political background, or is that from a social commentary background? Is he in our space on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, he's around, you know, he's very visibly around, and he's in the public eye a lot of the time. So, you know, it's difficult for him, you know, it's difficult for him to kind of, and you know, for me to kind of pin it to one or the other. I mean, yes, he has there's a political background, there's a social background. You know, it's difficult for me to kind of, you know, comment further on that. But he's around, he's very visible.
James, I can't remember when last a book was published without the name of the author on the jacket. It takes me back to maybe the Middle Ages, where authors used to publish works and for fear of persecution wouldn't put their names on the jacket of books, or credit themselves with writing the content. When is the last time we've had something like this in South Africa? I can't remember of it ever happening.
No, it's as far as I know, there's never been a South African example. Even you know, under the former dispensation, there was, you know, all authors came forward and they kind of declared themselves. You know, but in a modern South African context, certainly it's never happened. But I think that we are in a space at the moment whereby you know, people who want to comment on the political situation in this country, you know, often if you look at, for instance, what's happened with Max du Preez recently and his commentary, you know, the message, in fact, has been missed in all of that. And I think that this author in particular, he wants to come forward and he wants to talk about South Africa now and what's happening in the country without his profile and his engagement with what's happening in the country getting in the way, you know, and it becoming about him and, you know, which political party he belongs to, or, you know, which kind of, who are his friends, or, you know, anything like that. And it's difficult. So he wants to come forward and essentially say, listen, let's talk about the message, let's not talk about the book, let's not talk about my connections and my history and where I come from. And I think it's a really interesting idea, but certainly I haven't seen anything like this, you know, actually taking the name completely off a book. I haven't seen it done. And obviously it's quite difficult to kind of go to a shop and say, listen, take a book with no author. You know, it has to be a very strong message, and I believe it is a strong message.
I agree with you. I think it's a very strong message too, but we're going to leave it there. Unfortunately, we run out of time, but it's a fascinating read. That was a publisher from Kwela Books, James Woodhouse, talking to us about One Man, which is a gritty depiction of life in South Africa, and it deals with all